In today's Leeds news, Darko Gyabi loan recall option, varying fortunes with injuries at Elland Road, Daniel Farke's number 10 plans and Leeds United's January transfer policy discussed, and a small update on Leeds United's interest in Dor Turgeman. Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, the 6th of December, and tomorrow we get to play Derby County. Last time we did that, we were celebrating promotion to the Premier League, which was very nice. But we have plenty of news to deal with today before we get to tomorrow, so let's dive into it. First up, we need to discuss Darko Gyabi and the fact that he has a little bit of a recall clause in his loan to Plymouth Argyle, but it's got some quite interesting restrictions involved in it. Plymouth Argyle are somewhat struggling at the moment. They are just above the relegation zone in 21st place, and they've won one match in the last 9. That was against 24th place Portsmouth. So when it comes to keeping hold of their key players, they are quite desperate to do so, and their director of football had a little bit of a word with the Plymouth Herald the other day, discussing some of the potential issues they are going to have around transfers. In this interview, Neil Dewsnip said, Darko Gyabi, for example, between the 1st and 7th of January, Leeds can recall him. But once it gets past the 7th, they can't. That, I would like to think, is us defending ourselves, but the reality is they are not ours. Now, obviously, from a Plymouth perspective, this is not ideal. He is absolutely a key player for them. He's missed 2 league matches this season. One of them was against us when he was not allowed to play because of the player registration regulations. If they were to lose him, they would be in very, very deep trouble, but thankfully, it doesn't look like it would be in our interest at all to recall him. He's not going to get any minutes for us. You need to keep in mind he is still just 20 years of age, so he has a lot of developing to do, and he's at a fairly decent championship standard at the moment. Allowing him to stay over there and play minutes is a good thing, but this does have some pretty good implications for our sort of transfer negotiation work at the moment. It implies, at the very least to me, that we are focusing on doing what is best for us at every possible stage. We're making sure that we've got clauses in place that can protect us in case we weren't able to sign Gilavogi, for example. If Ampadu's injury was longer, if Ilya Grove would have been out for the entire season, getting someone like a Darko Gyabi back would have been absolutely essential. Turns out we don't need to do that because we've signed Josh Gilavogi, but having that clause in place is a good sign of forward planning from the club, in my opinion. And in terms of updates from the club, Daniel Farke had his press conference yesterday, and whilst this channel doesn't typically cover many things from press conferences, I had a chat with Joe, and there were a couple of things that were of interest that we could potentially dip into and have a little bit of a talk about. First up being our varying fortunes with injuries at the moment, with Isaac Schmidt back in training, but presumably not ready for a full 90 minutes. Sam Byram still out, and Junior Firpo suffering from a knock. It looks like Max Vober might have to be our left-back option this weekend. Not necessarily the best of things, but Daniel Farke did say that he has experience playing there for his country, for his club, and called him a good and reliable option there. It looks like if it comes to it, we will be starting Max Vober at left-back, but ideally, Junior Firpo is fit and healthy and able to play. However, we do have some very differing fortunes from Ethan Ampadu. Ethan Ampadu is already back in team training after a very, very long time out injured, and this was sort of approached by Daniel Farke with a fairly relaxed feeling, but the idea that he would want him back as soon as feasibly possible. In the press conference, he said, "He looks good in training, he can handle the load. Normally I would use a player when he was out for such a long time after 2 or 3 weeks before he could become a topic for the squad. Ethan is 2 or 3 weeks ahead of schedule and back to team training. He was desperate to come back as soon as possible. He is our captain, our most important player in the whole squad, and for that I'm also tempted to bring him even a bit earlier." Clearly very good news for Leeds because he's a pretty important player, but it also points us in the direction of transfer policy, and it indicates something around the number 10 conversation that we've been having very recently at Leeds United, where Daniel Farke sort of alluded to something in terms of that position. In fact, he started the section on Ethan Ampadu by saying, "Ethan Ampadu is also back in training right now, obviously was out for such a long time. This all is connected to each other. Obviously, they're not natural number 10s, but it would also perhaps free up one of our other midfield players to use him in a bit higher role." Now, this is a potentially very exciting bit of news because people have been asking for Tanaka or Rothwell to push forward into the 10 just to provide a little bit more physicality in there. Brendan Aronson's energy is fantastic, really good at the pressing stuff, but imagine our Tanaka's passing range when he's trying to find a winger that's making a run, or Joe Rothwell's physicality and will to run forwards when we're in those sort of positions. This was all sort of connected to a wider discussion on transfer policy, where Daniel Farke said that there are 8 games until the January window opens, so we're going to judge what happens from that point. He also very, very distinctly did not rule out signing a number 10 or making any marquee signings, because it was a case of, if the right player at the right price comes up, it's good. Leaving all the options open, being very, very flexible, is an ideal way forward, and it means that we can fill out the squad in the best way possible without pressures coming in from the outside. It's best for the transfer guys to do their thing, bring the best options to Daniel Farke, say, would you like him, would you not like him, and then ultimately make the decision based on that. On the subject of transfer updates, there is a pretty big update on Dor Turgeman to come in a minute, but whilst I was recording this, I just saw that Andrea Radrizzani is very close to buying a controlling stake in Vasco da Gama. Good luck, guys. Don't let him own your stadium at any point. He might try and sell it off. And finally, to close out your Friday, we have a little bit of an update on the potential signing of Dor Turgeman. This was the number 9 that we discussed in yesterday's video, who was potentially interested in making a move, played for Maccabi Tel Aviv, 21 years of age, Israeli centre forward, genuinely fairly good-looking player. Not around Mahmoud Jaber, absolutely nothing has come out regarding him, but there was a little bit of an interesting development in the Turgeman situation yesterday. Turgeman had been an essential part of that Maccabi Tel Aviv side. He played for the last 6 consecutive matches, whether it was in Europe or in the sort of Israeli Pro League. But for yesterday's match against Hapoel Hadera, he ended up not being selected, dropped to the bench. Potentially, this is a case of him being dropped to the bench because of that agent talk. I don't know whether it is just agent talk or actual stuff behind it. Again, I trust the sources, but the likes of Joe Donoghue at the YEP were saying that it could just be the agent trying to spread a little bit of interest, get a little bit of something going on, get a story going so he can make his move to Europe. It does very much seem like Dor Turgeman is going to be on his way to a major European club at some point. Whether it is in January or in the summer, it's just a question of where he goes, in my opinion. And I'll be completely honest with you, this being dropped from his side tells me that there is potentially quite a lot going on behind the scenes. It's not a nothing story, especially if he's been dropped despite playing incredibly well and being described as the hottest player in the league. It would be a weird move for them to do so if there was nothing in it. In any case, this story is going to be something of a wait and see. We're not going to find out what is actually happening until January, especially with the way that the 49ers like to stay quiet when they're doing their business. We will also have to wait and see how we do against Derby County tomorrow. I'm hoping for a win. It'll be absolutely fantastic if we do that, get back to winning ways, especially at home, especially against Derby, who we beat at home in the season when we got promoted. So I'm looking for signs all over the place. But that's it from me for today's video, and that is it from me for taking over Jer's channel for the week. I have had an absolutely fantastic time. I've been really, really happy with having a look at the comments and seeing how you've all accepted and welcomed me. I'm really, really thankful for all of that, and I'll be completely honest, I would love to be able to come back and do this again sometime. It has been a spectacular experience, very different from the stuff that I do, but I've honestly absolutely loved it. Thank you, Jer, for the opportunity. I hope you have had a fantastic honeymoon, and if you want to go on any more holidays, you know exactly where I am. Hope you all enjoyed the video. I will see you later. Also, I'm actually finally going to do a plug on my channel. Go and subscribe to Joe Blackburn. That'd be really nice. Ta. Ta-ra.